today we are going to start the topic law of variable proportions. The objective of this topic is to know law of variable proportions, assumptions and its three stages, causes of applicability and applicability of the law of variable proportions. This law is also known as law of proportionality. Keeping other factors fixed, the law explains production function with one factor variable. When output of a commodity is sought to be increased, the law of variable proportions comes into operation. For instance, there are two factors of production, land and labor. When the number of one factor is increased or decreased, while other factors are kept constant, the proportion between the factors is altered. For example, we take land is a fixed factor whereas labor is a variable factor. Now suppose we have a land measuring 5 hectares. We grow wheat on it and with the help of the variable factor, that is labor, accordingly the proportion between the land and the labor will be 1:5. If the number of laborers are increased to 2, the new proportion between labor and the land will be 2:5. In this example, we have seen that in the first case, the proportion between the land and the labor will be 1:5. But in the second case, as the labor increased to 2, the new proportion was 2:5. Hence, due to proportional change, the factors which emerge as a change in total product at different rates. So this tendency in this theory of production is called the law of variable proportion. Now one definition I will give you, that is of Benham. As the proportion of the factor in a combination of factors is increased, after a point, first marginal product and then the average product of that factor will diminish. Second definition is of Leftwich. The law of variable proportion states that if the inputs of one resource is increased by equal increment per unit of time while the inputs of other resources are held constant, total output will increase. But beyond some point, the resulting output increases will become smaller and smaller. Now let us look assumptions. First assumption is constant technology. The state of technology is assumed to be constant and given, and if there is an improvement in technology and production function will move upward. Second is factor proportions are variable. The law assumes that factor proportions are variable, and if factors of productions are to be combined with the fixed factors, the law has no validity. The third assumption is homogeneous factor units. The units of variable factor are homogeneous. Each unit is identical in quality and amount with every other unit. Fourth assumption is short run. The law operates in the short run when it is not possible to vary all factor inputs. In order to understand the law of variable proportions, we take example of agriculture. Suppose land and labor are the two factors of production. By keeping land as a fixed factor, the production of the variable factor, that is the labor, can be shown with the help of the following table. As in the table, first 10 acres of the land is fixed, units of the labor are changing from 0 to 8, total product increases with increasing rate, average product is also increasing and marginal product is also increasing. So from the table, it's quite clear that the three stages of the law of variable proportions. In the first stage, average product increases as there are more and more doses of labor, capital employed with the fixed factor land. We see that total product, average product and marginal product increases, but average product and marginal product increases up to 40 units. Later on, both start decreasing because the proportion of the workers to land was sufficient and land is not properly used. This is the end of the first stage. The second stage starts when the first stage ends or where AP is equal to MP. In this stage, average product and marginal product starts falling. We should note that marginal product falls at a faster rate than the average product. Here, total product increases at a diminishing rate. It is also maximum at 7 units of labor, as you can see the schedule, where marginal product becomes 0 while average product is never 0 or negative. The third stage begins where second stage ends. This starts from 8th unit, as you can see in the schedule. Here, marginal product is negative and total product falls, but average product is still positive. At this stage, any additional dose leads to positive nuisance because additional dose leads to negative marginal product. As now you can see the graph. In the figure 1 on OX axis we have measured number of laborers while quantity of the product is shown on Y axis. Up to E unit the total product is increasing at an increasing rate. Between point E and G, increasing at the decreasing rate, here marginal product has started falling. At point G, when 7 units of laborers are employed, total product is maximum, while marginal product is 0. Thereafter, it begins to diminish corresponding to negative marginal product. In the lower part of the figure, MP is marginal product curve. Up to point H, marginal product increases. At point H, that is when 3 units of the laborers are employed, it is maximum. After that, marginal product begins to decrease. And after the point I, marginal product becomes 0 and at point C and it turns negative. AP curve represents average product and before point I, average product is less than marginal product. At point I, average product is maximum. Up to point I, average product increases, but after that it starts diminishing. So already you have seen the 3 stages with the help of schedule and diagram. Now more explanation is needed. That is, in the first stage it starts from 0 and ends up to F. At point F, average product is maximum and is equal to marginal product. In this stage, total product increases initially at an increasing rate up to point E, and F it increases at diminishing rate. Similarly, marginal product also increases initially and reaches its maximum point at H. Later on, it begins to diminish and becomes equal to average product at point I. In this stage, marginal product exceeds average product. In the second stage, which begins after the point F, the total product increases at diminishing rate and is at its maximum point at G. Correspondingly, marginal product diminishes rapidly and becomes 0 at point C. Average product is maximum at point I and thereafter it begins to decrease. In this stage, marginal product is less than average product. In the third stage, this stage begins after the point G. The total product starts falling. Average product also declines. Marginal product turns negative. Law of diminishing returns firmly manifests itself. In this stage, no firm will produce anything. This happens because marginal product to the labor becomes negative. The employer will suffer losses by employing more units of the laborer. However, of these stages, the firm will produce up to any given point in the second stage only. Now we have to decide in which stage rational decision is possible. Stage first is characterized by increasing AP so that the total product must be increasing. This means that efficiency of the variable factors of production is increasing and the efficiency of the fixed factor is also increasing. In the second stage, which is characterized by decreasing AP and decreasing MP but with MP not negative. Thus, the efficiency of the variable factor is falling while the efficiency of the fixed factor is increasing. Finally, stage third is characterized by falling AP and MP and further by negative MP. Thus, efficiency of both the fixed factor and the variable factor is decreasing. So what is the rational decision? The stage second becomes the relevant and important stage of production. Production will not take place in either of the two stages. It means production will not take place in the third stage and the first stage. Thus, a rational producer will operate in stage second. So what are the conditions of causes of applicability? First is underutilization of the fixed factor. In initial stage of production, fixed factors of productions like land or machine is underutilized. So more units of the variable factor like labor are needed for its proper utilization. As a result of employment of the additional units of the variable factors, there is a proper utilization of the fixed factor. In short, increasing returns to a factor begins to manifest itself in the first stage. Second condition is fixed factors of production. The foremost cause of the operation of this law is that some of the factors of productions are fixed during the short period. When the fixed factor is used with the variable factor, then its ratio compared to variable factor falls. Production is the result of operation of all factors. And when an additional unit of a variable factor has to produce with the help of relatively fixed factor, then marginal product of a variable factor begins to decline. Third is optimum production. After making the optimum use of a fixed factor, then the marginal return of such variable factor begins to diminish. The simple reason is that after the optimum use, the ratio of the fixed and the variable factors become defective. Let us suppose a machine is a fixed factor in the production. It is put to optimum use. And when 4 laborers are employed, or if 5 laborers are employed, then total production increases very little and marginal product diminish. Imperfect substitutes. Mrs. John Robinson has put to the argument that imperfect substitution of factors is mainly responsible for the operation of the law of diminishing returns. One factor cannot be used in place of each other. After optimum use of fixed factors, variable factors are increased and the amount of fixed factor could be increased by its substitutes. Such a substitution would increase the production in the same proportion as earlier. But in the real practice, factors are imperfect substitutes. However, after the optimum use of the fixed factor, it cannot be substituted by another factor. Now, applicability of the law of variable proportions. The law of variable proportions is universal as it applies to all fields of production. This law applies to any field of production where some factors are fixed and others are variable. That is why it is called the law of universal application. The main cause of application of this law is the fixity of any one factor, land, mines, fisheries, and house building, etc., are not only the examples of the fixed factors. Machines, raw materials may also become fixed in the short period. Therefore, this law holds good in all activities of production, etc., agriculture, mining, manufacturing, industries. So the learning outcome of this topic is, after studying this topic, the learners will become familiar with the law of variable proportions, its assumptions and stages, understand the causes of applicability and applicability of the law of variable proportions. Thanks.